Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the March 2021 Epsilon Sigma Phi Professional Development Webinar. My name is Jeanette Ray Keywood, and I serve as chair of the Professional Development Committee. If you would please take a moment to drop your name and institution in the chat box so we know who we have with us today. Our presentation is Gaining International Experience, USAID's Farmer to Farmer program from the Global Relations Committee. John Vreyens from Minnesota and committee member has coordinated a panel of people representing various agencies, including USAID, Venture 37, NCBA, CLUSA International, and Extension. Our speakers are Peggy Carlson, Sadie Pascock, Maddie Yashrush, Sequina Ireland, Amanda Dixon, and Richard Beckham. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box. And at the end, we will have time for those questions. And I also want to make note that we will be recording this webinar. Without further ado, I'd like to turn the time over to our presenters, starting with John.
All right, thank you very much, Jeanette, and welcome everyone. On behalf of the Global Relations Committee, we saw this as an opportunity to provide some ideas about potential areas for extension educators to use their skills and their expertise in contributing to overseas projects. And the Farmer to Farmer program is not a new program. It's been around for a while, but the current implementers are working in various regions on various types of programs. And that's why we thought it would be a very good opportunity for us to introduce you all to some of the key players and some opportunities, as well as hearing from someone who's actually participated on the Farmer to Farmer program. And so I will start off with Peggy Carlson, who is at USAID and works in the Farmer to Farmer Program Management Office, to begin her presentation.
Great, thank you. It's nice to see you all, and I see some people joining as we go, so but the slides will be available afterwards. But yeah, I'm really pleased to be here to talk about the Farmer to Farmer program. As John mentioned, I currently work at USAID as part of the team that oversees this program, but it's also very dear to my heart because on the implementing partner side, I worked on the implementing partner side before I joined USAID, and I also had a lot of experience with Farmer to Farmer. So I really got to see the impact and how it worked and what type of experiences volunteers had and what kind of benefits the program had, continues to have. So next slide, please. Great, so I was gonna just give a little bit, I'm gonna give a broad level overview of the program, and then following are some representatives of some of the individual implementers who are gonna give some more of the details, but I wanted to just set the background, the context and everything. And as mentioned, this is not a new program. It was initially authorized by Congress in the 1985 Farm Bill. And so last year was our 35th anniversary of the program, which was pretty exciting. I mean, to have that kind of longevity really means that it has support from all levels and that it's really seen as a worthwhile program. The program, you may hear it referenced, people say Farmer to Farmer for short, but the full name is the John Oganowski and Doug B. Ryder Farmer to Farmer program. And so Doug B. Ryder was one of the pilots killed on September 11th, and former Nebraska Congressman Doug B. Ryder was one of the ones who initially sponsored the program, and so it is named after the both of them. But 35 years is really exciting, and I will say we also had a big 35th anniversary celebration last year, and there's recordings of that, and there's some great success stories and things. And so at the end of my presentation, there's a link to the website. So if you want to read more, find out more information in general, but also about some of the history, it's all there. So next slide, please. So just overall, the goal of Farmer to Farmer program, the two main goals, and this is what makes it a little bit unique versus other USAID programs. One is to generate rapid, sustained economic growth in agricultural sectors around the world. And so that does align a lot with what USAID does with our agricultural portfolio. But the second goal is to increase the American public's understanding of international development, of the issues and programs, and understanding what the US is doing overseas. And that's an equally important component. And that is where the farm-to-farmer volunteers come into play, so that when they travel, they have an experience, they come back, they share it with people in their community, at their university. And so it's really a fascinating program because it has two sides to it. And, I'll get into a minute how the program works, but just to show, you can see some of these pictures. It's very hands-on. It's very, there's a volunteer in the field working directly with farmers. There's a whole scope of projects that the program works on. And so they're not all, out in a field like this, but it's really a great way for US extension educators, agriculturalists, or even people not in the agriculture sector, graphic designers, other people with skills that are needed to get some international experience, to promote economic growth, and then also bring those stories back home. So the next slide. Oops. It doesn't look like it's, oh, there it is. Oh, okay. So just real quick, I'm not going to read each of these, but the way Farmer to Farmer works is that there's country teams in each of the countries where the program operates, and they identify farmer associations, agriculture universities, cooperatives, individual farmers, agribusinesses, rural financial institutions, and they're carefully selected as ones to participate in the program. And the big point about this farm to farmer is that it is demand driven. So the key is these host organizations, and they say, we're a beekeeping association and we've lost a lot of bees to varroa mites and other diseases. We could use some beekeeping experts to come over and do training, technical assistance, so that we can, we can address this problem, or whatever the topic is. And so it's always demand driven. There's always, that comes from a need from the field, and then that expertise is matched with the US volunteer who can travel or provide remote assistance during COVID to help this group achieve their goals. And so, and then each of the implementing partners who you're going to hear from, they carefully plan assignments, they sequence them, they make sure that if you're a volunteer is going out they have to be there during the growing season, that they're not going when that's not appropriate. So it takes a lot of moving pieces to make this happen. And and then there's like a detailed scope of work for each assignment, and US volunteers are recruited with those right skills. And so I think it's really, from the outside, it looks like, oh, someone got on a plane and went and helped, but there's so many moving pieces to this to make it really successful and a strong program, and, make it worthwhile of everybody's time. So next slide, please. And just quickly, I mentioned that, as I mentioned, the volunteers will have the skills that the host wants. So it's demand driven, and volunteers are matched with the scope of work, and the timing is important on when they can go. And we know that, US volunteers have different times that they're available. And so they may have the right technical skills, but not the right flexibility on timing. So it's more of a science to get people matched up. And they travel for a couple of weeks during normal times overseas for a couple of weeks, and they are able to provide direct assistance in the countries where they're being assigned. Now during COVID, we're going to probably hear a few stories from some of the organizations about how they've adapted to the COVID situation by doing remote training and remote assistance. But the goal is that people will be able to get back on airplanes before too long, hopefully, and to have that face-to-face interaction as well. So next slide, please. So Farmer to Farmer, as it's funded by the Farm Bill, it's funded in 5-year cycles to correspond with the Farm Bill. And so the current cycle has 8 primary organizations who are implementing it, plus a number of others. You can see some of these groups are here today to talk about their activities, and it's really pretty broad. There's this, like I said, the 8 implementing partners that have large programs, And then there's a program called the Agricultural Volunteer Opportunities Project, which gives small grants for activities similar to the one that Purdue is going to talk about. And there's a new small grants competition coming up soon. So that will, that's something to keep an eye on. And yeah, so you'll see that people can participate in a variety of ways. So next slide, please. Also, someone just messaged me saying they were waiting to get into the meeting. So I'm not sure if people need to be admitted, but anyway, just as a note. So the countries where we work, you can see there's a pretty long list. Farm to Farmer is pretty spread out globally, and there's a lot of variety. The ones in bold, that was more an internal thing. USAID has a Feed the Future portfolio where they focus agricultural activities, and the ones in bold are Feed the Future countries. But Farm to Farmer is very active in all of these countries, and we have opportunities for extension educators and others to travel during non-pandemic times and to participate remotely and help host organizations in each of these countries. So the next slide, please. And equally diverse are the types of projects. Now you can see from this list that farm to farmer projects in all of those countries are also quite varied. So it could be animal source foods or rural livelihoods, financial services, tree crops. So, which is great news for people because people from all walks of life can participate if they have a variety of technical skills, like food safety, for example. You can be an expert in food safety and you could get a chance, but there's so many components to that, but you could get many different chances to participate. And I think also, as I mentioned before, the diversity of this, financial services, that's maybe not technical Aggies that are participating in that, but it could be bankers or accountants that are providing assistance. Or for example, in some of the agribusiness development, we've had people doing graphic design and website development for small agribusinesses to help them improve their services. So there's lots and lots of opportunities for people to participate. And so I really encourage you all to look at those, to spread that information around in your communities, at your universities, because it's pretty diverse in the ways that people can participate. And then I think there's one more slide. Yeah. And so I think I'm close to my time, but just to wrap up, this is linked to the overview page for the Farm to Farmer program. And there's a couple things to note here. This is a page that kind of recaps all of the programs. But on that page, you'll also see links to each of the individual country and implementing partner projects that tell you more. But this is a great place to start to get an overview. There's also what's called a common application there, where you can go in and fill out your information, and your CV and your interest gets sent to all the implementing partners so that they know you're interested in volunteering. Or of course, if you're only interested in, say, Morocco or something, you can go in and contact that group directly to find out more. But this is a great place to start, is this farmertofarmer.org. And so the link will be shared. I think it may be shared in the chat, but if not, it'll be shared on this slide afterwards. And I really do encourage you all to dig in to see what opportunities are there, to see what you can tell your colleagues about, and start thinking about it, because it's a great way to get international experience. But I think my time is up, so I will let the next presenter go, but I am definitely happy to answer questions. I think you said we were leaving them to the end, but yeah, I'll be happy to answer any then.
So Peggy, thank you very much for that overview of the program and getting us started, and just general ideas of what's happening. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Maggie Yarosh from Venture 37. And let Maggie take the floor.
Great, thank you, John. So my colleague Sadie Pashka was going to join, but she is having a little bit of technical issues, so I'll be taking over for her today. So again, thank you for the introduction. My name is Maggie Yarosh, and I am the volunteer coordinator for our Farmer to Farmer program here at Land O'Lakes Venture 37. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just an overview about our program. So within the farmer-to-farmer context, we specifically focus on food safety and quality within Egypt, Lebanon, and Bangladesh. So this isn't necessarily a regional focus, but more a thematic focus that we like to bring out in our programming, specifically due to our connections with Land O'Lakes, Inc., which is an American member-owned agricultural cooperative based in Minnesota. Many of you may have heard of it, specifically around our butter production. So we really like to focus on our technical expertise and capabilities that we can leverage from Land O'Lakes, Inc. Through volunteers, through the Inc. side and member ownership, as well as tapping into some of the resources and expanding that beyond Land O'Lakes, Inc. and reaching other volunteers as well. So generally, we focus on mid-career volunteers, but sometimes early career as well within LOL, who are mentored by managers that we really like to leverage as well. And our programming also focuses on the private sector, most often, mainly small to medium-sized food processors within all three of these countries. Volunteers and field staff are also encouraged to work together on all of these assignments. And usually we have in-person assignments for about 2 weeks, working with these small and medium enterprises with our field staff. But because of COVID, we've transitioned a lot as well and adapted to COVID through remote assignments and partner organization mentorship. So we're really trying to focus on how we can be adaptive and flexible with our host organizations, while also accommodating the needs and understanding the climate that we're in currently with our volunteers as well. Next slide, please. And then, so these are just some examples of the assignments that we have right now, and some assignments that we periodically bring up and have as well. So for the creation of GMP manuals, so GMP would stand for Good Manufacturing Practices Manuals. So again, usually when we have in-person assignments, we're able to field volunteers and have them work specifically with the host organization in person on these kinds of things. But because, again, of COVID, we have adapted this to the creation of having volunteers develop technical training manuals on good manufacturing practices for fruits and vegetables, meat products, and different processing needs of the sorts. So within those manuals, they can focus on GMP rules and regulations, good hygienic practices, processing plant, construction and design, and so on. That has specifically been seen within our Egypt offices. We also have the FDA nutrition facts labeling requirements assignment, specifically for Lebanon, and we've seen this as well as an important assignment. So this can include requesting assistance from a labeling expert to go over their labels for to be able to export, or for the host to be able to reach export, and then to be also compliant with international regulations and standards. So a lot of our assignments are geared around helping the host organization reach these standards and requirements in order to export to larger domestic markets or beyond. And then again, with similarly to shelf life and packaging, also identifying other gaps in their food safety management systems and finding ways to increase their product shelf life. And then for the last one, the GMP, GHP, and traceability assignments, we are also aware that a lot of these small and medium facilities are looking to improve their production practices and to implement, again, more GMP and GHP practices overall, and finding pathways to certification to access some of these markets. So working specifically on the steps needed and the milestones achieved along the way in order to access these types of markets. So we are always looking for more interested volunteers, and again, we have lots of links to our site as has been noted earlier. And so if anyone is interested in learning more, please feel free to contact myself or John, and we can get you more information about these opportunities. And we really hope to be able to send out volunteers soon enough. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Maggie. And I know Land O'Lakes has had several of the farmer-to-farmer programs, and it's been a great opportunity for people from Minnesota who participated in the programs in the past. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Our next presentation is from Sequoia, Ireland, who is representing NCBA CLUSA International.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, everyone, depending on where you are located throughout the world. Yes, thank you for having me here today. John, you can go to the next slide. So as John was mentioning, yes, I am with NCBA CLUSA, which stands for the National Cooperative Business Association, the Cooperative League of the United States. We are a trade association for cooperatives. On a mission through the Farmer to Farmer program to assist co-ops around the globe. So definitely making sure that we are practicing our cooperative principles. John, you can go to the next slide. All right. So we have over 65 years of international development experience. We currently have a portfolio that is working in more than 15 countries. So we're working in about 17 countries where we are providing assistance and support in areas such as food security, agricultural development, and then of course, organizational development, cooperative governance. John, you can go to the next slide. Actually, you can skip this one too. All right. So NCBA CLUSA currently has our Farmer to Farmer program in Honduras, Ecuador, and Peru. And then we also have some flex assignments that are available in Cambodia. Now, I know we haven't had much discussion on flex assignments, so I'll be sure to describe that later on in the presentation. We have chosen to focus on what we call the overall coffee systems theme, where we work with producer groups and cooperatives who are primarily working in the cacao and coffee sectors in these three primary countries, helping them to strengthen their cooperatives through organizational development assignments and small agribusiness assignments. We also promote horticulture and tree crop enterprises in our assignments. We love to focus on working with women and youth. NCBA CLUSA as a whole, just in 2020, was able to support about 900,000 women and then about 350,000 youth. And some of that also came from the support of the Farmer to Farmer program. Next slide, please, John. So we have a wide variety of assignments that do become available. So there are some that are going to be more of an agricultural focus, such as like your plant propagation, your integrated pest management assignment. And then NCBA CLUSA also partners with Engineers Without Borders, as well as the National Peace Corps Association, to create technical assistance assignments. So engineering assignments that you might come across may be helping to fix or create a solar roaster for the coffee producers, or even like the cacao drying process, so the fermentation boxes or something like that. Coffee wastewater is also, excuse me, a topic that has come up. When we look at our business skill assignments, we're looking at those who are going to be able to assist with the marketing. We've noticed a shift into virtual sales because of COVID. Obviously, it's changing our lives, folks. Looking at developing business plans, even when you get down to organizational development. I don't know how many of you all might be familiar with cooperatives, but providing support to cooperatives, sometimes they have issues where their members aren't necessarily participating in activities. And so we help them to recognize their role as members and the responsibilities that they may have. Now, with these flex assignments, so our core countries are Peru, Honduras, and Ecuador. With the flex assignments, these are assignments that are occurring in other countries. So Cambodia is our focus for flex assignments, and it doesn't necessarily have to be within the coffee, cacao realm. So we have a few assignments. John, if you can go to the next slide. So we have a few assignments in Cambodia that are working on cold storage and handling, or fruit post-harvest handling. These are some of the assignments that are currently available. So if there's anyone in this crowd that is a biofertilizer or bios expert, by all means, do not hesitate to email me or send me a message. If any of you all have expertise in coffee post-harvest handling, integrated pest management. So I will mention This particular pest management is more of a compost focus because this particular host organization does want to comply with organic standards. So if you have expertise in that, by all means, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And you'll see we also have a list of some other assignments that might be of interest to you or maybe someone within your network. Next slide, please, John. So there are perks to volunteering, I assure you. And as a former volunteer, I can speak to that. But also, you know, as I interview our candidates, both pre and post assignment, the volunteering is an opportunity for you to broaden your knowledge base. Not only do you as a volunteer get to share your level of expertise with these underserved communities, but you also learn a lot, not only about yourself, but then I think we as farmers we know that we're innovative, but you get to see what other people are doing around the globe, maybe with less resources than what we have here. All expenses are paid by the program. That's if you're on the in-person portion of the assignment. There's that cross-cultural exchange, and you don't have to know the local language. That's the beauty about the program. We do provide you all with translators if you go on this assignment, or even if you're doing the assignment remotely. Next slide, please. So I just want to share with you all a quick video, just so you get an understanding of how every volunteer experience is unique. So John, if you'll click play or go to the next slide and click play.
Marnsetra is right on the northeastern coast of Madagascar. Get a lot of rainfall in this area. For me, it's a beautiful area. People are extremely friendly, extremely welcoming, but also very hardworking.
Fotom-pivelomagna zany famboleagna, mamboly vary, jirofo, kafe, mamboly vanille, fô saiky mbola voly nentim-paharazana fô atao kafe tsy mamokatra firy izy. Vidim-bokatra zegny lasa zay tian'ilay mpividy atao. Ilay tegna nampiezaka zay amin'ny fidirana amin'ny fikambanana igny mbô hialagna amin'ny teritery.
Once the cooperative entered, we really explained a lot of the market activity and the ability of a cooperative or a group of farmers to not only argue a price with commissioners and directly with exporters, but how to get additional benefits.
Ny tombontsoa azonay agnatin'ny coopérative mirary soa, fondry, afaka mifandiniky, afaka mifanerasera, afaka mifankafantatra. Le fiofanana zegny efa tô, hitanao samba le toe-tsaigny aby aza, efa misy fivoany be.
As a volunteer with NCBA CLUSA, we were able to work very closely with the farmers. We provided multiple trainings to the farmers out in the countryside, trainings about record keeping, financial management, and a lot of the trainings that we did was how to replicate these trainings amongst the other village members.
Raha olo mpamboly tsotra hiditra amin'ny coopérative mirary soa, tsy maintsy mitrotro amin'ny membre de bureau. Isaka fokontany, raha hiditra ianao, tsy maintsy ambara azy ny fepetra, iraisiny mikasika le coopérative. Ary azavaigny aminazy ka hoe dikany agnanovana le cotisation fiarovan-tegna.
A lot of advantages for our farm. First of all, the continued trainings that they've had through the NCBA CLUSA program. We offer a rice advance in the lean season. We offer a bonus on the purchase of the green vanilla during the green vanilla season.
Ny tegna agnatin'ny programanahy manana magazine zay. Amin'igny zegny zay mbô afaka mahandro le vokatra avy zegny mampita azy amin'ny mpividy. Zegny koa tonga aminay zay matoky fô afaka alio tegna tsirairay.
There's a saying here in Madagascar. It says, "Ireki ireki faskia fa miarakatsika vat." It means one by one we're sand, but with each other we're a stone. I often rely on this saying when I'm doing my trainings because this is the idea of a cooperative.
All right, thank you very much, John. Next slide, please. So we learned about Matt's experience in Madagascar, and I will mention that was prior to COVID, okay? And this is actually my experience, just some photos from my experience in Senegal back in 2016. So you really do get an opportunity to immerse yourself in the culture when you're traveling in person. Next slide, John. And then these are some of the experiences that our volunteers have had in over the years. So looking at our projects in El Salvador, Honduras, Peru, and in Ecuador. Next slide, please, John. And I do want to take this opportunity to highlight that, you know, during COVID, we have switched to the paired remote model that was mentioned earlier. So this slide is actually a combination of what those types of assignments look like. So you do have the online, the virtual assignments, and then the two photos that clearly are not virtual assignments were definitely taken before COVID. Next slide, please, John. So farmer to farmer reviews, I like to tell people it's not Yelp, but it's the closest that we're getting to Yelp at the moment with the farmer to farmer program. So I ask volunteers, you know, after the assignment, like what is some advice that you may offer someone who's considering volunteer service? And some of the responses are like, just do it. You know, you have this opportunity, you have the expertise, but you'll also learn a lot about yourself. Looking to find out, you know, do the volunteers feel like their talents and skills were used effectively? And it's like, yes, you know, it's providing them with an opportunity to remain active, especially during COVID. It's giving them the opportunity to share their knowledge. And then what did you enjoy most about volunteering? During this time, being able to share, you know, the expertise, their skills with someone who otherwise would not be able to afford it. Like, that's a beautiful thing. All right, thank you very much, John. You can go to the next slide. There are many ways to get involved with the Farmer to Farmer program. As Maggie had mentioned earlier, you can, or Maggie and Peggy, I think, you can sign up on the Farmer to Farmer website. You apply for positions that are a great match, share these positions with your network. And then once you complete an assignment, be sure to share your experience with your broader community. And next slide, John. And if you'd like to get in contact with me, this is where you can reach me. Thank you.
And thank you, Sequoia. I know that the new website, the Farmer to Farmer website, has got all kinds of stories. And it's pretty interesting to see over all these years, the impact and the opportunities that have been provided to the many people who have volunteered and taken a chance and been farmer to farmer participants. So thank you for the introduction, Sequoia, on your programs.
Absolutely, thank you.
So I'll turn the floor over now to Amanda Dixon, who is with Purdue University Extension.
Hello, everyone. And actually, I think this is the second time I have spoken to this group about Farmer to Farmer. And so I'm excited to be back and talk more about our project here. So as Peggy mentioned earlier, there's sort of this bigger program with the large implementers, and then there are these smaller programs, which you referred to as AVOP, or the Agricultural Volunteer Opportunity Project. And so that is the program that we are taking advantage of. And so we work with Partners of America. And so we're just like a sub grant of the overall program. So I am the program director for Trinidad and Tobago. And like John said, I work at Purdue University. So we can go on to the next slide, please. So a lot of people have never heard of Trinidad and Tobago. They don't know where that is. And so I like to talk about where Trinidad and Tobago is. But first I'll talk about our overall program. So it's a 3-year program. We started last year in 2020, right as COVID began. And so then we'll go through the 2023. And we never really had an in-person program, so we really started with this virtual program, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So we have proposed that we will send 45 people to Trinidad and Tobago on assignments, and we have 2 main goals for our program. One is really working with the extension system in Trinidad and Tobago and doing direct capacity development with extension staff and faculty here in the United States with extension staff there. And then on the other side of that, we want to work with farmers and groups there on food and nutrition security, particularly with productivity, safety, and profitability. Next slide, please. So you can see that it is in the Caribbean and it's right off the coast of Venezuela. It's actually 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. And in the northwest part of the island, there where it says Port of Spain, you can actually see the coast of Venezuela on a clear day, and it's just gorgeous. It's actually a 2-island nation. So Trinidad is the main island, and then Tobago in the upper right-hand corner on that map is the smaller island. And interestingly enough, Trinidad is closer to Venezuela than it is to Tobago. So I think that's always really interesting. And it is a little bit smaller than Delaware to give you some idea of the size of it. So it's very easy to drive around the entire island in a day or in a morning or in an afternoon. They have your very typical rainy season in the last part of the year, so June through December, and then January through May, it's a very dry season. And we see a lot of that come through in the assignments that we have where producers want to learn about drought management, or they want to learn about excess rainfall, runoff and whatnot. A little over 1 million people on the 2 islands. They have a really interesting and awesome ethnic mix in the country. So about 50% of the population comes from Africa. That was one of the first islands on the slave trade that came through, and that's where they stopped. And then about 50%, the other 50% of the population is from West Indies. So we had indentured servants that came over from West Indies. And so here on the screen, it says like a 35, 34, 30 mix. So obviously over the years, then there's been mixed population. So that's represented here. One of the most beneficial things for us as a project is that the primary language in the country is English. And so we don't have to use translators when we have assignments. A very highly educated public, 99% literacy. Most of them have graduated from high school and even a lot with secondary education. They have a pretty low unemployment rate. And then of course the capital there is Port of Spain, which is where we stay when we go, and which is where all the volunteers stay as well. Where our partner, the University of West Indies, and we have partnered with them, and their main campus is right outside of Port of Spain, so it makes it very easy to have access to them, and all of our volunteers are close by. They're a fairly young country in relation to their independence from the UK in 1962. And so it, you know, politically, they're very interesting. And I need to catch up on that because they had a tie over in Tobago, and they were trying to work through how to work through a tie in some of their political positions. So next slide. So like everybody else, you know, COVID hit and travel restrictions came about, and we were then unable to send our first in-person for a volunteer assignment. And so we had to transition right into virtual. And it has worked really well for us and our project for a number of reasons. One is the language barrier that we don't have. Two, this is a little bit more of a developed country than what Farmer to Farmer typically works in. And so most everyone has access to internet on a cell phone. Connectivity is pretty easy. Electricity is pretty stable. And so very rarely do we have disruptions that, you know, occur in other countries. So these virtual assignments have really taken on, you know, sort of a mind of their own, and they look very different from assignment to assignment. We have what typically you would think of as a, you know, like a teaching assignment where we have PowerPoint and we are watching PowerPoint presentations, to then also, you know, more generic or more organic conversations. And then on the other side of that, then we also have some live filming that goes on and live tours that are happening and live demonstrations that are happening as well. And so in the upper left-hand corner, we have, we are working with the Unemployment Relief Program in Tobago. They have an agricultural department and they wanted to start seeds and they wanted to sell these seedlings to the general public. And so they needed some help and needed some assistance and learn how to do that. And so we had a volunteer from Ohio State Extension who had worked in the region previously. And so she was able to slide right in and had great knowledge about the area. And our virtual assignments happen over 5 weeks and they happen once or twice a week, sort of like a classroom setting would happen. And because it was over 5 weeks, the volunteer was able to plant some things in her own home prior to the assignment. And so she was able to grow those things through the assignment and talk about what was happening in her own plants, while observing what was happening locally. In the lower right-hand corner, we have a network of rural women producers, and COVID really hit them really hard. And early on in our project, they needed a lot of help to transition one of their festivals to an online festival. Their big moneymaker fundraiser for the year was obviously postponed or canceled. And so they wanted to still showcase all of the goods and products that the women were making. And so they needed to figure out how to do that. So our local volunteer here with Purdue Extension, she was able to help the women transition and have what used to be an in-person festival to an online festival. It was a really great event, but really different, but filled with videos and interviews. And so really amazing, I think. Next slide. So on the left-hand side, we have a few of our assignments that we've already completed. Again, you'll see a nice mix of extension-related capacity building type of assignments versus, that more direct farmer to farmer type of assignments. So our extension assignments, of course, the first one, multimedia skills for virtual extension programs. Their extension system really struggled to go online. Our extension system had, pretty much already gone online. And so they were able to, transfer some of those skills there. Technical writing, we have a couple of, one of the more private extension entities wanted to know how to write more formalized manuals, like how-to type of things. And so one of our educators was able to help out with that. And probably one of the biggest assignments that we just recently completed, they have in Trinidad and Tobago, one of their extension arms is a marketing department, and their sole responsibility is to help farmers get from their market to the local, or from their farm to the local market, and then also internationally as well. And they're struggling to export some of their goods because they don't, they don't meet international standards. And so they have decided to implement a good agricultural practices certification system. We have one here in Indiana. And so, and that just happened over the past, 5 years or so. So we had the coordinator from that program come on and really is helping them develop that certification system. So then the assignments on the right-hand side, those are just a few of the assignments that we're looking for right now. Right now, there's some focus on greenhouses and a little bit on the cocoa farming. And so very similar to Sequoia, if there is anybody here who is interested and has the skill set, please reach out to me and let me know and I will get you hooked up. Next slide. So again, my name is Amanda Dixon. There's my email address, and please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Amanda. And I think it was interesting. You show the AVA part of the program, but at the same time, it's a university that's participating in a very different role from, say, Venture 37 or from NCBA CLUSA. But yet it's a very different type of program, but the same idea of the farmer to farmer. And so thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Richard Beckham. Richard is on the Global Relations Committee of ESP, and he offered to share his experience being a participant in the Farmer to Farmer program not as the implementer or manager of the project. So Richard, I'll turn it over to you.
I get myself unmuted, we can get going here. So again, I'm Richard Beckert, and I'm a county ag and natural resources educator for Purdue University in the southern part of Indiana. So if you want to go to the next slide, John. You know, my assignment was a 2-week assignment in Colombia, South America. The focus of it was dealing with organic vegetable production, dealing with farmers who had either been displaced off their property, and the government has been giving farm land back to farmers, or farmers who had probably been producing coca leaves for the cocaine production, but farmers who are transitioning to a more vegetable production and wanting organic aspect of that. If you want to go to the next slide, John. You know, again, 2 weeks, and I had some real concerns myself. This was my first international assignment, but everybody with Farmer to Farmer and Purdue Cooperative Extension Service said, go for it. You know, as Sequoia mentioned, just go for it. Yeah, do it. You have the knowledge. You can help these farmers out. You know, the biggest problem was language barrier, but you know, as I mentioned before, there's an interpreter with you at all times. She was fantastic. She helped me through. But it's those type of things that you worry about when you get these assignments, but it works out. They take good care of you. They make sure you have proper paperwork, make sure you have everything. You don't have to worry about any of the details. It happens. The program is basically some site visits, farm visits, working with farmers one-on-one, and some more formal educational settings, you know, teaching settings with groups of farmers. But again, it all has to do with helping the farmers get what they need. A lot of us in Extension, we deal with farm questions every day. This is the same thing. It's just a different aspect of production. You know, talking vegetable production in Indiana, vegetable production in, you know, Colombia, South America. They're similar, but they're completely different. But you still have, most of us in Extension has knowledge that will fit into some of these programs that have been mentioned that they're looking for volunteers for. John, if you want to go to the next one, they take good care of you. They treat you well. You meet some of the best people in the world. These farmers are hungry for information. But again, as been mentioned before, I walked away from the program a better person and a different person than what I walked into Colombia as. So as a volunteer, you gain, you grow out of the program also. But it is a great opportunity. And when given those opportunities, you know, take them. Next slide, John. You know, this is what it's all about. Most of us in Extension, we know we deal with people. We're in this business because we like helping people. This is what it's about. You know, again, if you just get that opportunity, go for it. You know, it's been mentioned several times. You know, we worry about, oh, do I have the right program? Do I have the right information? You do. We're all Extension professionals. We know how to take a program and fly by the seat of our pants and, you know, make it work out. Again, a great opportunity to increase your personal skills, increase your professional skills. I learned a lot about, you know, I've been in Extension 30 plus years. I thought, you know, most of that I've been dealing with vegetable producers here locally. But again, I learned from them. They taught me as much as I probably taught them, but it's just taking that step outside the box and doing it. Again, you will come away a better person for it. And I think we've made a better place on this earth by these programs, by participating in them. But again, fairly easy program to work with. I would highly recommend anybody on this program today or any of your coworkers, get a hold of the program specialists that I've talked today, Amanda, Sequoia, Maggie, get a hold of those and see what opportunities are available for you. With that, John, I think that concludes mine. There's my contact information up there. Please give me drop me a line, email. I'll be glad to answer any questions. But again, I would strongly encourage everybody to, really think about what skill set you have that can benefit the Farmer to Farmer program. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard, for sharing your personal experience there. And I will have to say, I see there's a gentleman on the line, Gary Lemmy, who I once took to Senegal, and he said, if you blindfolded me and we only listened to what the farmers were saying, they're talking about the same problems in Western Minnesota as what the farmers in Senegal were talking about. So I think we all have experience that we can bring back in for people to learn more about it. And so at this time, we've got about 5 to 8 minutes where we would be able to answer questions. And so I'm going to go over to the chat. And I see that Susan Gary has asked, does USAID Farmer to Farmer projects have any ties to the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? And that's for any of our presenters or Peggy and Sadie, welcome. I see you were able to get into the system. So anyone care to respond?
I can jump in just quickly and say that USAID as a broader organization does follow, we have our own strategies, but they do align in many ways with the Sustainable Development Goals. And I feel like Farmer to Farmer, although it doesn't explicitly link to rolling up into those goals, there is a lot of commonality in what is trying to be accomplished with those goals and what is trying to be accomplished with Farmer to Farmer and all of USAID's ag programs. So kind of a general answer, but there is actually more written on this, but that's just the short answer.
Okay. Other questions?
Please put your questions in the chat box or unmute yourself.
I had seen a question while I was talking earlier. But it just crossed my screen. It was about Haiti, whether or not Haiti had been removed as a country in the program list. And I just want to say the countries where Farmer to Farmer is active, they change fairly regularly. Every 5 years, the implementing partners, put together a proposal for where they would want to work, and they pitch that. And there's certain countries where obviously it's not feasible, and the implementing partner that had previously been working in Haiti had chose not to include them in their full program just because of challenges on the ground. But that doesn't mean, you heard some talk about flexible assignments. That doesn't mean there couldn't be a couple assignments in Haiti. It's just the implementing partner chose to not have that be a primary country just because it was very challenging to work there sometimes.
And there was another question here that said, I didn't know we could participate with other universities. This is from Thomas. How does that work?
So can I word that a little better?
Oh, sure.
That's me. So yeah, I participated in a Farmer to Farmer. New Mexico State University had a deal going with in Colombia as well. So I was glad to hear Richard's. So I was in Medellin. It was a 2-week appointment, Medellin and Bogota. But I loved it, man. It was awesome. It was exhilarating. It was a lot of work, and it was a lot of work and hardly any sleep. But it was exciting, and I want to do it again. I want to keep or build on that. But this is new to me. I didn't know that we could participate in other universities or other programs in the Farmer to Farmer program. So yeah, how does that work? I guess I would have to work that out with my university or take annual leave, or I don't know, but give me some information on that, I guess.
But before I will have the implementers respond, here at the University of Minnesota, it used to be that someone who wanted to participate on the Farmer to Farmer program did take vacation for the time that they were overseas. In 2014, the Dean of Extension, when she created my position and asked me to take on the role of global initiatives, because we see this as professional development for our extension educators, they no longer have to ask for vacation time. We just have to be able to work with their program leaders and the associate dean to be able to fit it into their schedule, because they still have the responsibility for their work here in Minnesota. But at least we had a dean who was considerate of allowing people to look for opportunities and not have to take vacation to do it, because we see it very much as professional development. So with that, Sequoia, Sadie, Maggie, Amanda, how does it work when people from other universities approach you and are interested in putting their name in the hopper for an opportunity?
Sequoia with NCBA CLUSA. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat again so that you guys will have that information. But it's, you can go to our website, ncbaclusa.coop, and find out about the programs, the assignments that we currently have available. I know I showed you all just a brief list of the ones that we currently have available. There's also the farmertofarmer.org website, which is a great resource, and that allows you to have your information shared with all of the implementers. But yeah, I'm gonna put my information in the chat, and then you guys can feel free to email me.
Yeah, so just to back up a little bit, the way that it works would be you would find an assignment that matches kind of your expertise with one of the implementers, and then if you're currently at a university, you would seek permission from your manager or whoever at the university. And we have, as John said, we've been seeing a lot more universities and organizations really stepping up and supporting this kind of work as professional development, and not making their employees or staff take vacation days for those assignments. So definitely encourage you to have that conversation with whoever it is who manages you, because these are really great professional development opportunities, and it's really a win-win for the organization, for the institution, for the participants in the country, and for the volunteer as well. Thanks.
The only thing that I will add is that I know at Tennessee and at Purdue, we're not closed off to only, Tennessee staff or Purdue staff. So all you have to do is you just reach out, just like any of the other implementers, you just reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in, A, B, or C assignment. And then, like Sadie said, you just, get the approval of your district director, your program leader, and you go from there.
Thank you all for that. There's just 2 minutes left, and there's a question about beyond technical knowledge or willingness to travel. What do you as program managers look for in applicants to the Farmer to Farmer volunteer opportunities?
I'll chime in real quick. I look for flexibility and adaptability. Very much like Richard said, and like Thomas said, you sort of got to fly by the seat of your pants a little bit. So the way we organize it, you have a Zoom call with a host, and you really pinpoint what specific topics that they are really interested in. And then you have about a week to come up with some of that material and then deliver it. So I ask about flexibility and adaptability.
Okay. Well, I'm getting the notice that it's time to wrap up. Toby, I did see your question, Toby Spanier, that you're going to be traveling to Ecuador, and maybe it would be possible for you to get a hold of Sequoia and have a conversation with Sequoia following up on your question. But thank you all for attending today. To all of our panelists, thank you very much for being willing to share about your program and experience with the ESP membership. And I'll turn it back to Jeanette.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists for today. Peggy, Sadie, Maggie, Sequoia, Amanda, and Richard, we certainly appreciate all of the knowledge that you shared with us today. Thank you to the participants in today's webinar. And I just want to mention that we do have webinars offered each month, the last Tuesday of each month, April through September. So next one is April 27th. So check out the website and register for the upcoming webinars. Once again, thank you to the Global Relations Committee and the panelists for today's program. We greatly appreciate your participation, and we want to give you a round of applause for an excellent job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.